Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Hidden London Hangouts. Would you believe we've been doing this nearly a year? We are so close, within a hair's breadth of our 1 year anniversary. We have two amazing programs in prospect for you to enjoy. This week is a really cool place that I never would have imagined would have such an interesting story to tell, but it does. I don't do this on my own. I've got three amazing people from the London Transport Museum to guide us through the history of London, also give us a bit of a giggle as well. First of all, off the blocks is Chris Nix. Good day to you, sir.
Hello, Alex. I'm enjoying the spring weather. Are you full of the joys of spring, Alex?
Always springing everywhere. City Holloway, have you sprung?
I have sprung. I've even put on a lightly coloured top, and I'm not wearing a jumper for like the first time in ages because it feels a little bit warmer today, and I'm excited about it.
It's great, isn't it? And Laura Hilton Brown's looking gorgeous, pepperminty and spring-like.
Oh, hello. Well, I started off in a t-shirt, but I'm not as hard as Sid because I had to put something on because it's a little bit chilly.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, today's station is one where you drive past it, wouldn't even know that a station had existed. If you're eagle-eyed and you're in the area, you might notice little things as your train goes through the tunnel to give an idea that something might once have been there. It's called St Mary's, brackets, Whitechapel Road, and it's very close to Whitechapel Station. Didn't last long. Interesting station with a few bits left there still. Laura, this has been a bit of a voyage of discovery for us, hasn't it, this episode?
It has, absolutely, because, well, we've done a few of these, right? These kind of slightly off the beaten track, smaller stations that due to kind of, you know, a lower footfall have just kind of fallen off the radar in terms of, you know, people traveling through them or knowing about them. And I can't lie, when we've thrown a few of these in, I've been a bit underwhelmed, and I've been maybe hastily judging in my kind of, oh, not really sure about this one. And this one is going to be the same as all of the others, that when we start to unravel it and we go beyond that kind of surface level and we really dig a little bit deeper, this one's got a lovely, lovely journey too. And there's definitely some wow factors. There's definitely some exciting images to come. We've got some treats because we've got some little site visits as well. But I am the same as you, Alex. I really didn't know much about it. Slightly underwhelmed. Totally thrown that on the pile. It's going to be a good one.
So basically, this episode is going to be cool because we're going to give you a lot of things to look out for when you do start traveling again, to remind you of what there used to be and what there is now. First of all, Chris Nix, take us back to the 1880s where this story begins.
Yeah, so St Mary's Station opened on the 1st of October 1884 as part of the Metropolitan and District Railway. And if we take a look at this tube map, we can just see where it's located. Out on the right-hand side of that map, in the East End of London, we can see St Mary's just sandwiched between Aldgate East and Whitechapel on this map. Now, in 1923, 26th of January, the station was renamed Whitechapel Road. And the station was physically quite close to Whitechapel. And Aldgate East station was awkwardly positioned for the smooth running of the railway and needed to be moved ever so slightly to the east. And because of that, it encroached somewhat on now Whitechapel Road. And both the old Aldgate East station and St Mary's Whitechapel Road were closed in 1938 on the 30th of April, when the new Aldgate East station was opened. Aldgate East, if you like.
Aldgate East squared.
Indeed. And so that's the brief canter through St Mary's Station's history and how it comes to be a closed station.
It's fabulous. So far, so good, right? So we've got the map. It's looking good. If for the little witness marks that you might want, as trains come into Aldgate East from Liverpool Street, you'll notice that there's quite a big surge on the track. That's because the station moved. And also between Aldgate East and Whitechapel, it's really, really bendy. And we're going to show you why in just a second. And it's interesting because the maps, Chris, actually are really good at explaining how the lines evolved in the area, aren't they?
Yeah, I've got another one for you because
Yeah.
we often refer to the circle line. You don't really see it shown as a circle on maps, but this is the closest you get when it's shown as an oval like this. This is a carriage map, as it's known.
Now, this is
Would have
really
been displayed
fascinating.
above the seats in a compartment in a carriage.
And what I love about this map as well, Sids, because you were only there last night, actually down those tunnels, is if you look down to the, in fact, maybe if Chris can zoom down into the area, you'll see the East London line as we knew it, which is now part of London Overground. It went to Whitechapel, but there was also this line off to St Mary's, Whitechapel Road and Aldgate East. And Sids, only last night, that you were in that tunnel, weren't you, between Shadwell and St Mary's, Whitechapel Road, and it's still there.
Yeah, it is still there. So yeah, we were there last night doing some filming for the TV series, and I have to admit, I didn't quite understand the sort of geography of the area until I was basically standing right there in the tunnel, and then it clicked for me, and I sort of went, oh right, that's how it sort of mixes together. But it's really amazing, and yeah, it's still all there. We had a couple of people from London Underground with us last night who were telling us that actually that part had been blocked up at one point, but recently reopened kind of to that area. So it's really impressive. And I think we've got a photo of it for you as well.
I love it.
Do. It's coming up, not just yet.
I love it. And what I think is so cool about this is if you're on the London Overground, even now, and you go from Shadwell towards Whitechapel, look out of the left-hand window as you go along, and you will see that tunnel appear and peel off, and it will join the District line. And if you cast your mind back to the days when the East London line operated, before it was Overground, it used to share the same trains as the Metropolitan line. And I always used to wonder how they got there. It's down that tunnel. That's how they used to put the trains on those tracks, which is fascinating, Chris, isn't it?
It is. No, I also, with this map, I really love the fact that it shows the Metropolitan Railway using that diamond symbol for its stations. We've talked about this previously. I think we saw it last at Rayner's Lane episode, where they would create a bullseye but use a diamond on the bar instead. And if you look at the bottom there towards the left, you will see exchange stations shown thus with the kind of the double diamonds.
We are so lucky, Laura, aren't we, to see this? I mean, the great thing about the museum, Laura, is that you actually gather this sort of stuff.
Do you know what? It really is fabulous. And I was just looking at that bit and I thought, oh, look, someone spelt shown wrong. And then another part of my brain was like, that's such a cool map. It looks a bit like a spider, and it also looks like a letterbox. And I have so much love for you guys because that's where my brain goes, but you guys know all of the proper information, and I'm like, oh look, it's like a letterbox.
Wouldn't be the same without you, babes. Wouldn't be the same without
thanks.
you. But I love the fact that map actually shows the East London line, Circle line, and the Metropolitan line, and probably a bit of the District line on there. If only they knew back then. And
one of the nice things, if you want to see one of these in the flesh, then in our museum at Covent Garden, the Chesham set carriages there, a carriage there has got one of these in the compartments, so you can see one at the museum.
Oh, and you've got the Hammersmith City there as well, coming off to the side on the left. That's nice.
Amazing map. Really, really cool map. And we've got a picture, haven't we, Chris, of the tunnel? Is that right?
We do, but just to orientate you, we've got this diagram which shows a proposed alteration at Whitechapel, and just on the right-hand side you can see East London Railway just kind of cutting down diagonally towards the right-hand side. And if I just kind of hop into it a bit more, you can just see it there, peeling off the blue lines there, and that is this tunnel here.
And that is genius because it's under the Royal London Hospital. So if you know the area, you know that tunnel will peel off onto the main part of the District line, but also it's all still there. And that's how they used to get the trains onto the old East London line, down those tracks. I'm absolutely fascinated by it. And as you say, the fact that you get to go down these places, guys, is so, so cool. And then we can show you on the Hangout. So it's absolutely brilliant. And I'm loving these pictures, Chris. We've got even pictures of St Mary's Station, haven't we?
We do. There you go. What do you reckon to that then?
See, that fascinates me because I reckon that looks very much like the old Shoreditch station on the East London line on Brick Lane.
Yeah, I mean, they were built by the same company because the station was actually built originally by the South Eastern Railway, which then ran the East London line or East London Railway. So they were built sort of by the same company, and then it was taken over by the Metropolitan District Railway or the District line later on. So you're absolutely right. It's got the same features, and I know what you mean. It really does look like the old Shoreditch station. It's also got some remnants of, you know, the Metropolitan ones that we've had a look at in other episodes, like Marlborough Road and Lords, but seems a little bit less grand, maybe, you know, sort of got similarities, but it's smaller.
Yeah,
quaint.
it's not Leslie Green-esque, is it, Law? That's the thing.
No, I think I've got this kind of newfound love for these types of buildings because it's not something before the Hangouts that I was massively into. But I look at this now and I love the London skyline kind of banners above the poster boards and the archways above the windows and the doors and the brickwork and the keystone. And it's just, I just think that's beautiful. I think it's a really lovely image and just something you could put into a movie set or a film, and it's fabulous. I really like it.
Well, that's the thing, Chris. I mean, whenever we've talked about these Metropolitan line stations, they've always got quite a fancy sort of top. They've always got those lovely archway doors and windows. They have a look about them, don't they? There's an air of kind of municipal grandeur about them.
Yeah, grandeur was the word I was going to use as well. And I also love the detailing. So if you look just to the right of the doorway in, you've got the underground sign there has got London skyline with St Paul's centered in the middle of it. Looks rather wonderful. And then just below that, presumably an enamel map below that. I just love the underground to anywhere.
Yeah,
isn't that a great claim? It's just like anywhere that matters can take the underground.
And look at is that a circus? What's the thing? What's the poster on the right? There's so many different things there, Law. I mean, for you as a poster girl, I love that poster girl. You would be in seventh heaven. Save money in every journey. A season ticket will do this for you. There's instructions everywhere, isn't there? There's little pointers to life.
It is. I think Chris hit the nail on the head there as well, that it's the detail, because you know, as far as station frontages go, it's quite basic. But then when you look at the detail, it's actually really lovely and eye-catching, all the different things that are in it. And there is a poster to the right-hand side. I think that's the one you've just referred to, Alex.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's for.
Hudson and Kirby. I wonder if it's like the Hippodrome or something like that. I'm somebody on anybody. If you know, drop us a note. We'd love to know what that was all about.
Do you see the one at the top? Do you see the one at the top? Kind of. I mean, I don't think it is, but it looks like the Emu wine. Do you remember the Emu wine, guys?
Oh yes.
And the zoo. Look, I think it's the zoo is on that poster there. Is that right? Zoo?
Oh, I don't know.
Can't quite tell.
In the corner. Well, anyway, let's pop into the booking hall because there's joys and delights in there as well. I mean, look. Even the clock. I want that clock.
It's
We've
really
got
helpful
one of that
to see
sort
this.
in the museum collection.
Yeah,
it's really helpful to see this because it's such a different looking, and I mean, as you said, it is a little bit basic, which, you know, it really is, because we're used to these kind of grand ticket halls with all these, you know, tiling and you know, hardwoods and all of that stuff. But at St Mary's, it was quite, as you said, Law, basic, but it's really nice to see this. I didn't actually know that we had this in the collection, because it shows where, you know, where it points towards the trains, and later on when we show you a bit about from the platforms, it really puts into perspective kind of the orientation of the site.
Totally. And knowing what's to come as well in the pictures that we've got to show you. There are some storming photographs still to come in this episode, and this is just one of them. It's so lovely. And there's something, Chris, isn't there, about the simplicity, yet the fanciful nature of some of it. So you've got like the little windows, but then you've got lovely little tops on those windows. And then you've got the wood panels. Then you've got the cornice work around the ceiling, and quite clearly, quite a fancy light glued to the screwed to the ceiling.
Yeah.
As well. There's a lot going on, isn't there?
There really is. And I think just to speak to those points that you've made there, this was a real enigma of a station to try and bring to life for this episode. As Siddy says, the at first glance, it doesn't look like there's a great deal in our collection, but I really had to dig for a lot of these images this week. But it's because it's lived under so many different names. Our search engine really is bothered about whether you include an apostrophe or not. And so if you keep digging, you can find these riches which are very easily overlooked. This booking hall, to my mind, is really, really rather beautiful. And it's very starkly lit in this photo because it was taken with a flash in order to actually get the shot. But if you can, in your brain, sort of dial down that very stark light and imagine that lamp at the top has a nice soft glow to it. The lamps over the ticket windows would have gently illuminated that space, and possibly the booking office sign as well if they uplit as well. And I think that to the trains is also a lit box as well. And that would transform it into quite a cozy, inviting space, I think.
Yeah, it is. And the other thing about this episode as well, Chris, and I'm sure you'll agree, in fact, girls, you will as well, that knowing what's coming up in this episode, personally, I think what's left there now is so intriguing. Even if you weren't interested in any of this, what's to come, and is still there as of yesterday, is so cool. You think, how did that survive? So anyway, we'll be on to that in a minute. But Laura, we've got posters for you as well.
So yeah, I think it's important, of course, to think about who was using this, who was what service was this providing to the community, and this poster, I think, answers very well. So there you go, Laura.
This is a very cool poster, and I love it because it immediately takes you back to that kind of real hustle and bustle and industry and trade of the docks. Like, everybody's working hard there, aren't they? They're kind of keeping London going.
And you also, really, you forget, don't you, that London had docks like that. When you look at London now, it's all about shiny buildings made of glass. But when you think the Docklands were just like that, and filthy dirty, industry heavy, that was it. And trains went from down the Metropolitan line and down the East London line to drop people off Dockers and the like.
Sorry, go on, Law.
No, I was just going to say, my granddad used to work on the docks at Liverpool on the boats up there, and so had so many stories about working on the docks and the boats. And so for me, there's like a real kind of nostalgic element to this print as well. Yeah, very cool.
I was just going to say, when we were just prepping last night before we went down onto the track, I love that part of London because it's one of the few places in London where you still have those old, like, proper kind of industrial Victorian buildings kind of dotted about, and just seeing them gives you such a sense of time and place. Like, there's nothing quite like it, those kind of old warehousey looking sites that you only really get around sort of Whitechapel, maybe down to Limehouse, and like you said, the docks. It really gives you a sense of like transporting you back to Victorian London. And I really love that.
The whole area is so rich in history. You think about the Royal London Hospital, the Elephant Man, you think about the Blind Beggar Pub, the Craze, the East London sort of underworld is so rich around there. Even if you walk a little further, you've got Brick Lane, you've got Columbia Road Flower Market. The whole area is so beautiful. Bethnal Green with the history there, and the wartime disaster there. There's everywhere you go. I've never been in a place. I used to spend a lot of time in East London. I've never been in a place which is so literally rich, corner to corner of street, with so many different stories to tell. It's amazing. So I'm not surprised that we find ourselves in this microcosm of joy in East London. It's lovely.
So I think another poster kind of nudges us towards the demise of the station. You can see this station's advertising the fares and the season ticket prices, but down at the bottom, change at Whitechapel or St Mary's.
Yeah,
they were already fairly close.
Yeah, same prices. And Laura, it's one of those posters, isn't it? Which is, they're so utilitarian. It's pretty, but it just does its job, doesn't it? It's a bit like we're getting there with the escalator installation.
I was just thinking the same, because the actual kind of copy on it is from this station to change at, here are the prices. But then there's this really kind of quite ornate, repetitive border that even looks like it has kind of, shoots, like spring shoots in each corner, as if kind of, you know, things are growing, things are developing. And so it's kind of this lovely ornate border and then just very factual information in the middle.
What I love about this, though, you know, Laura, is that, I mean, and people have said this, you see the world through completely different eyes to the rest of us. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And people spot it. We've had people literally messaging saying, we love the way Laura sees this. We can't believe that she sees a different world. I love it. So thank you so, so much. Chris, you were literally chomping at the bit there.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that although this poster might look fairly plain to our eyes, the border is actually designed by a very significant artist, Margaret Culkin James. So this is from 1928, and so that border, just to brighten up some otherwise very dull print, albeit with beautiful typeface and a great underground bar at the bottom. But yeah, even with very basic functional posters, the underground group was trying to, you know, liven things up and make them look more visually appealing.
And it's interesting because at this point in the story, the demise of St Mary's begins to become evident, because when you even think about the trains, Chris, there were moments where on the sides of the trains where the destinations were written, it would actually say, this ain't stopping at St Mary's, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So we've got a Q35 train car there, and those boards, that's exactly what it says on the side of them, non-stopping at St Mary's, Whitechapel.
It's quite sad, and the beautiful carriage. So Q35, that's dating from 1935, isn't it?
Yeah, that was the date of the design.
Yeah,
when
okay,
the
cool.
design first appeared. So,
I mean, stunning trains
yeah.
as well, beautiful trains, and the fact they've got it written on the side that they're not stopping at St Mary's, so you can see at this point. And the other thing that I'm sure you'll correct me on if I'm wrong, Chris, but the reason that St Mary's and Whitechapel were built in the first place is that originally they weren't linked by a railway line, were they?
That's
They were
right.
separate,
That's right.
And it was only when the district line started to grow its tentacles out towards Upminster did we see that link, and therefore they didn't really need St Mary's. So that, if that in your mind helps you understand the geography, Whitechapel and St Mary's were not linked. They were close by, but they weren't linked until the district railway came along. It's beautiful. I love that picture of that train. Love a train. And the station itself, the exterior of the station itself was I mean, look, by that stage, you've now got this big building round it that literally engulfs it almost, don't you, Chris?
Mm. Yeah, it is kind of dwarfed, isn't it? So this is from 1936. And again, as we just kind of look around the station, you can see it's now got Whitechapel Road in brackets next to St Mary's. And if we just look around it, the posters are quite interesting again. Should we have a little delve?
Yeah, zoom, Law. Keep your eyes peeled, love.
Totally am. I mean, I love this image because the station is nestled between, like you said, or engulfed, I think Chris said, between the wider building there, which is actually the Rivoli.
Yeah. Rivoli?
Holborn cinema. And it was one of the first super cinemas to be built in East London. And I believe that the interior, like the decor, was very French Renaissance. And if you look at the images, it's really grand. And it, you know, for a cinema, it had stalls and circles so that it could flip to kind of theatre shows as well as cinematic shows. And I love that because it gives you a real kind of taste of the station, like what was surrounding it and what it was part of at the time. I think we're coming up to some pictures about kind of what then happened to those buildings and the demise of them. But for now, love the kind of theatrical cinema around it as well. Totally.
And then, of course, you know, we've seen the station in that state, but then since down came the bombs.
Yeah. So we mentioned earlier that the station was closed in 1938, and then soon after it was leased to Stepney County Council as an air raid shelter, because all of the councils were kind of tasked by the government to provide air raid shelter for its residents, and you know, all went about building some. As we've spoken about in other episodes, often they were just kind of on the surface and they were just these brick buildings that were in no way safe from a direct hit. So Stepney did try to do something similar here with St Mary's, which was to build on the platforms. But of course, this is only a subsurface station, so it's not very deep underground. It's only about, what, 4 or 5 meters underground or so. So, you know, compared to the deep tubes, it's not as safe. And unfortunately, it suffered 2 direct hits during the height of the Blitz. The first one in October 1940, and then this devastating attack on the 19th of April 1941. So a high explosive bomb landed right in the middle of the road, completely demolished the station building and into a bit of the platform. And unfortunately, 8 people were killed in this particular attack, and quite a few people that were on the platform were kind of trapped for a few, I think it was, you know, close to kind of half a day or so, whilst they were trying to get the debris out. So it's really, that's sort of the reason why we don't have that relic of the station building there, like we, you know, like the one you mentioned earlier at Shoreditch. It's because, well, it basically got absolutely flattened to the ground in the Blitz.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And if you think about what is there now, because it's been a little while since I've been down Whitechapel Road for a lot of reasons, not least of all COVID. But when you were there, Chris and Siddy, what is that exact place where the station used to be? What's there now? Just so that when people are walking past, they can get an idea of where they were and where they are.
There is not much. There's nothing that you can spot really. The station site is boarded up currently, because there's some development that's going to go ahead on top of the old station sort of site. So it's just boarded up. There is a pure gym there and an Ibis budget.
Okay. So we've got a hotel and we've got a gym.
For.
So they're the sort of things, if you want to orientate yourself as you're walking up Whitechapel Road from Aldgate East towards Whitechapel, you'll see those particular buildings, a hotel and a gym, and you'll know exactly where you were. Now, whenever we talk about the war and the shelters and things like that, it all immediately just pricks up interest. And twice, obviously neither time with me, because that's the way it always works in the show, the team went to the building once in 2016, before I even knew them, and once last night when I did know them. And so we're going to have a look at some of the footage that they gathered back then and now. And I think it will be really interesting to see what they did to the station to make it an air raid shelter. Would you agree, Chris?
Yes. When Siddy and I first went there in 2016, the site hadn't started to be modified again. So we got to see the interim stage. So the first of the pictures we'll show was from 2016, and then we'll do the what we saw last night.
Nice.
So here we go. This was after we'd entered the station, and we're just walking down towards the platform area.
So you'd have got your tickets by this point, would you, Chris?
You would, yes. And you would have walked down the stairs, and what we can see here was the very crude but very sturdy piece of work they did after that bomb, the rough shuttered concrete to recreate this civilian shelter and basically salvage what had been built there, repair the damage to the ticket hall area. And as we walk down this slope in front, perhaps Siddy, you want to talk through this next bit, you get onto the platform area.
It's really amazing. And I was just, as you said, there last night, and there's something about that site which is just completely different from any other site that we go to on the Hidden London programme, or that we've gone to on this show, in that it's the only sort of disused subsurface station you can really visit. There aren't any remnants of them, you know, the other ones that have been disused, but this one. And to see those columns, those are Egyptian style columns that were used quite a lot during sort of the 1880s and 90s when they were building things. It's a very typical kind of Victorian architecture, and it's like the only place where you properly feel like you're in sort of Victorian London underground. It feels like, to me at least, it feels like you can almost imagine the people in giant petticoats with top hats, and you know, you get a real sense of like time and the age of the site there. It's
It
really,
really, I don't know whether you'd
amazing.
agree, it's a bit like when you go to Shadwell or Wapping
Mm.
and you're actually on the East London line and you think narrow station, brick arches, very similar to that actually. And it all feels, just as you say, like you're about to see somebody wearing a bustle. It's
Yeah.
so
So
of a moment, isn't it?
that construction technique you see time and time again during this era, these where they've got the columns with the steel beams running across them and these barrel vaulted brick arches in between them. So here we've got a very, very large one at Baker Street. So, you know, so the city says it's absolutely of its time.
I don't know why I giggled there. I don't know why I giggled. That's the child in me, Chris Nixon. I think you probably knew I would giggle when you said that. You
I'm not actually sure what you're giggling at, so
I'm not sure, but I think I probably do know.
Okay,
We'll just back the tape a bit later. But on the platforms, because of course, when they turn from being platforms for a station to being an air raid shelter, I guess they bricked up the tracks, did they? Because the station wasn't a station anymore.
That's right. Yeah. As we've seen at other stations, and this is a rare photo of City exploring. City, you'd only been with us for less than a year by that point, hadn't you? And this was one of our early go off and explore days.
I'd been there for nearly 2 years. We went in the end of 2016. Right. So I'd been there for almost 2 years. I just had my 6-year anniversary, by the way, with the London Transport Museum last
Many happy returns.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm about to have my first anniversary with the London Transport Museum in about a week's time. It is. That's incredible. So that would have been, so guys, because you've been there, I haven't, not that I'm rubbing it in. That is the platform on the right hand side. That brick wall separates that bit from the track.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
So a bit like Brompton Road, where they just bricked it up.
Exactly, yeah. So what they're doing there is to create a space where they can put shelterers in and keep them safe from the running of the tracks. And actually what they did here is something quite similar and reminiscent of the shelter they built in King William Street, if you remember that. So King William Street was also a shelter built by somebody who was leasing the station, and they split it in half, remember? So they had one half above and one half below. So above what you see as the ceiling there would have been another section of shelter where you could put more people.
Wow.
And I also really love that if we talk about King William Street as a comparison, the color scheme that you see there, the blue and the cream, that's also something that they had at the King William Street shelter and other civilian shelters that weren't organized directly by the underground. So it's definitely got just kind of wonderful little remnants that are different from the other kind of Second World War stuff we've talked about before.
And I'm not expecting you to know this, but I'm going to ask anyway, just because I'm curious, and I know Laura will love it if it's true. On that little alcove on the left-hand side, is that tiles? Is that yellow tiles?
No, those are bricks.
Oh, shame. Because that would have been so cool if we'd found some tiles for Laura, wouldn't it? But I tell you something, Laura, we have got something for you, because this is the picture that blew my mind. Of all the ones that the guy showed me, this is the one that I love. And this is showing the bridge that went over the tracks is still kind of there. At least the boundary, the walls are, even if the floor's been taken away. Look at that, Laura. That's the raw iron thing. You can imagine standing on that bridge and looking down and seeing trains passing underneath you.
I know, it's a real kind of dichotomy in this picture of old and new, isn't it? So you've got that lovely raw iron lattice. I assume they're the sides of the bridge. And I think Sidney said before that the actual foot kind of like bridge, the wooden part has come out. But isn't that lovely that this still exists? And there's probably so many stories of like, who crossed that bridge? What were they thinking? What were they feeling? You know, were they commuters and passengers, or were they shelterers? There's just so much kind of story and like personal information that's just kind of like just wants to jump out at me from this image. And I wish we could, we knew some of those. But great image. I can see why it's your favourite. So
glorious. Yeah. And that, as I say, that journey between Liverpool Street and Whitechapel on the trains, there are so many twists and turns to the track, some of them quite jolty. And you think something's obviously changed since it was originally built, which is why it is a bit juddery or whatever. And then you think there is a train right now probably going under that bridge, and nobody knows what they're going under. And there is the remnants of an old tube station. And like many other things, there's so many things still there if you only know to look, Chris.
Yeah.
It was really tantalizing when Tilly and I came up on this. It was like, wow, well, there's no deck on the bridge, there's no stairs to it, and therefore we can't see the other platform. And so that was really the limit of what we could explore when we went there. But when City went back this time, you spotted something else, didn't you, that we didn't see the first time?
So this is something that happens to us all the time. Look at that. So what where this shot is taken from, I'm standing on the platforms looking towards where we've just been looking at the bridge, but I'm behind a bit of wall. And there were these kind of stacks on the ground, so I could step on top of them. And as I did that, and I had a really good torch with me, I saw something on the wall. So this would have been on the upper half of the shelter, so on what I explained earlier. And I just saw something on the wall there, and I realized there were posters from the Second World War. And what they say, the only thing that we can really make out is says Bay Number 1.
Oh,
so
heavens, look at that.
Isn't that incredible? So that's basically saying that part of the shelter, that would have been a bay where people would stay. Then below that might have been Bay Number 2, Bay Number 3. It's just showing us how the site was organized. And it's just so exciting to see that in the flesh, still there after all this time. And again, Chris and I have been there before. I didn't spot that at all on that visit. Sometimes, as we say, you need to look up and notice what's around you, and sometimes it's kind of hidden behind lots of things. But yeah, I had a little squealy moment of excitement when I saw that.
I bet you did. And then, the funny thing about it is we always sit here, don't we, and say, lockdown's been a pain and COVID's awful. But genuinely, there are certain things that we can bring you during lockdown, like this, where you literally see stuff nobody has ever seen before. And last night, Siddy was in there and with Chris, and they shone a torch and they found a relic of the war. It blows my mind what this series has done. These were the 3 series that we've done so far. It's absolutely wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Tell me a bit more, Chris, about your trip, because not that Laura and I were sleeping soundly while you guys were trotting around on the tracks, but I would imagine there was quite a clear reason as to why you decided to do another trip last night, not least of all for a telly show, but other stuff that you wanted to find.
Yeah, so we were there principally because City was doing some filming, but as well as that, we hadn't been to the platform on the westbound side because there's no bridge to access it. So this was the one way to do it, and so yeah, this was how City and I spent our night last night.
Yeah. So if we
Whitechapel.
If we start yawning, it's not because we're bored, it's because we're severely sleep deprived, having spent the night in the underground. But I know that's the dream of many, so I can't complain.
I'd just like to say we hadn't planned to match with the masks. It's just how it worked out.
Well, there's such good masks, and particularly in that environment, you don't really want like a disposable one, because it feels like all the dust kind of gets really rubbed up against your skin when you're wearing those. So they're really I love those masks from the museum because they just kind of sit so nicely on your face when you're doing this kind of stuff.
Of that sort of thing, they are easily the most comfortable ones I've come across.
100%.
They are very, very nice. I have to say, I love my London Transport.
The only faux pas is that it doesn't have St Mary's Whitechapel on that bit of the map. So it wasn't quite on there.
And isn't your have you seen the size of your temple as well, Chris? On those, there's a very interesting temple. Not the first time anyone said that about you, I'm sure, but it's beautiful. I love those masks. Beautiful. I love my my district one and my Barman Bakerloo. Beautiful. I'm a big.
We go down the tunnel.
Yes, let's do it. I'm a big fan of Whitechapel because I actually started my radio career at the Royal London Hospital. So I'm a very, very happy camper when I was there doing my thing for the poorly sick of London. Now that is intriguing. Is that what I think it is? Is that a signal box?
It's a cabin on the westbound platform.
Yeah.
You can see there's a row of hooks on the right there for fire buckets. Inspector
God,
Sands,
God.
remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh,
And that's all still there.
Yeah, so one of our guides yesterday was the customer service manager for Whitechapel, a lovely man called Steve Martin, who was telling us that that cabin was sort of like well, basically a mess room, really. It was called the foreman's cabin, so it was for staff working around the area or in the station, and so that wasn't a signal cabin per se. It was more for a respite for staff, and I think that's incredible that it's still there. And again, we would never have been able to see it if we hadn't been literally walking on the track right next to it. So it was just really amazing to see.
Laura, we should have been there.
I know it's unfortunate, isn't it? But thank you to Siddy and Chris for getting us these images, because for me it's just raw and authentic and real, and just helps you step back in time. And like you said, Alex, at the moment we're not kind of getting any of that. The level of kind of excitement from what we've been able to do from these episodes is really cool, really cool.
And the eagle eyes, when we're going on the trains now between Aldgate East and Whitechapel, you'll be looking out for those brick walls to see where you move into what was, St Mary's Station. It changes the way you travel. How could anyone ever say any journey on the tube is boring when there are so many things to look out for? It's like the eyewitness guide to London's fun journeys.
So bless it, Siddy was working away down on the track, and I was quietly moving around in here, grabbing some rather nice images for us. So if we go a little bit further in, we get to see part of the staircase.
The stairs, they're still there.
The stairs are gone, but the handrails survive, still rather weirdly kind of clinging to the wall.
Oh, God, blimey, amazing. Amazing. Think it's all still there. Amazing.
And also on that side, that was also on the westbound side, was also fitted out with air handling for the shelter. And you can see, as Siddy was talking about before, that blue and cream colour scheme that says civilian Second World War shelter.
Beautiful.
Awesome. It's really awesome, isn't it? I just, don't you think it's such a privilege, guys, that these things 80 years after their use are still there and you can still visit them? Sometimes I struggle to put it into kind of perspective for people when they ask me about it, why it's interesting or not. It's like, think about things that are that old and that had that important of a function. You can't really see them. You can see them replicated in a museum, you can see the photos of them, but to actually stand in that space and it's hardly been changed, it's such a huge privilege, and we are so lucky that it still exists in the city.
All this stuff preserved by inertia, really. There was no real reason to take it out, so they just left it in, and because of where it was and it was dry, it just got preserved. I love it. And I think, when I look at the last year of lockdown, I always think my hour with you is an hour of utter escapism, where you just learn a little bit more about the city we all love. And we do it from the most peculiar angles, in the most peculiar places. So we just know under our feet, there's still a load of history that we probably can't see, but we can through these programs. And I absolutely love it. Chris, Siddy, Laura, what a beautiful little canter through a place which on the face of it looks fairly straightforward, but actually is full of memories down there.
Absolutely.
I think for a historian visiting these places, we can absorb all the diagrams and images that we like, but it's by going there and seeing how it physically lands in space, as Siddy says, is what really makes it come alive. So I hope we've succeeded in capturing that for our viewers and bringing a taste of it to the screens.
Definitely. So there you go, St Mary's Whitechapel Road for you in a potted history with some beautiful pictures. Last week, after the Hidden London Hangout, we did our live Hidden London Hang Up for our Patreon fans. And this is something we do once every month, in addition to all the extra stuff that we put on Patreon for anyone who's up for it and up for chucking a few quid at the museum. And it was quite an explosive and joyful episode, wasn't it, Mr. Nix?
It was lovely. What did you think of it, Laura and Siddy?
I was waiting for Siddy to go because I didn't want to talk over. I actually really enjoyed it. I'm always surprised that people have put all that effort into watching the YouTube channel, the YouTube episodes, and then they kind of come back for more. And all the questions that were being fired in the chat, it was really lovely. And I think there was a lot of energy in this one, and it was really good fun. Yeah.
I know, I agree. No, I was waiting for you to talk, so I wouldn't talk over you. I think it's just, I don't know about you guys, but it's just such a privilege to be able to talk and engage with people from all over the world and with different backgrounds, and just, unite over this thing that we all love. It just kind of warms my heart, and I thought it was really fun.
You can tell it's kind of finally hit us that we've been doing something that's kind of made a difference for a year now. As we approach the birthday, it's really made us think a bit more, I don't know, a bit more melancholy about what we've actually done, and we're all feeling quite chuffed with it, really. Okay, so there's a little flavour of what we got up to in our Patreon episode. If you want to find out more, Chris, it's all on the LT Museum website, isn't it?
It is. Visit ltmuseum.co.uk, have a look under the Hidden London tab, and you'll find the membership section there.
Now, glorious. Notes, queries and questions. We had loads and loads of comments about our Mail Rail episode last week. We loved it. You clearly loved it. Long Branch Mike said as well, he wants Baron's Court, the Art Deco paradise. He wants that covered. Nicole says, a great episode. I had no idea about the Postal Museum, so the visit there is now on the list after lockdown. Do it because it's great. We want to go back, actually. We want to do one of those track walks. Dino says he couldn't join us on Saturday, but has watched it now. Overjoyed you've covered Mail Rail, such an important part of history in London, now on the bucket list. We've got James Leblanc says, Chris has so much knowledge in his brain, the word Nixipedia came to mind.
I like it.
I love that.
Goes
with
the
Wikipedia.
I mean, I've already got so many nicknames for Nix. I shouldn't say all of them here because probably some of our viewers will start using them and he'll get annoyed at me. But I call him Nix to Fur a lot of the time. So Nixipedia is also very good.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. We've got a few more to come. Kim Columbine's is another lovely episode, I think, of my ever-growing list. John Vincent, been and got the T-shirt. Fabulous museum. Needs a little more publicity, don't we all? Give us a, tell your friends about us, and then go and spend money and visit us. Someone called You Lazy Git on YouTube, as I know you guys did a Metroland. Great name, isn't it? That podgy asthmatic. I know you guys did a Metroland video not so long ago, but would you consider a Beyond Amersham and tram line? Also cover off any stations that have been shifted or been replaced and naturally those now closed. We can do Metroland, the extension, can't we?
Yes. I think a number of episodes. I've had that one on the list since season 1. So don't worry, we will get to it, but we need to be able to go out and about to do that one.
I reckon that'd be fun for us to do in sort of spring, summertime, nice weather. We could maybe picnic up in Metroland. What do you think, Law? Sort of a day out for the 4 of us. I'm envisaging some nice stuff.
I'm in. I think the boys will have us creating our tea and cakes or whatever the shop is we were supposed to be. Oh,
bloody hell, yes. The cafe that we're apparently starting.
I quite like that. What we'll do is we'll get the finger sandwiches out. We'll get the finger sandwiches out. Kevin says, thanks for another brilliant episode. Is it correct that people who work for the government use a door that connects to one of the platforms at Westminster Underground Station? Keep safe, all of you. I can answer that. It's not to the platforms, it's to the booking hall. And it's exactly the same as another exit to the station. It's got a lot of security, but it's just another exit to the station with all the usual ticket barriers and everything else. It's just another way into the station. It happens to serve civil servants. It's nothing to see here, really. Mapala says, how weird, at 48 minutes into the episode, looks like a piece of white paper flashes across the screen, just like in your Halloween episode.
Ooh.
What do you reckon, Law? Are we
I have to go back and watch that.
We're all going to be tracking back to 48 minutes, aren't we, basically?
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love. Oh, Ali Rez says, looking forward to seeing what pattern of maquette they used on the mail rail train seats. All I can say is they don't use that now. It's quite a bumpy ride, but it's great fun, isn't it, Chris?
Yes.
Hello, Christopher.
I totally lost you there.
Oh no, we were just
It's
saying
not-
it's quite a bumpy ride, isn't it, on mail rail, Chris?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's a solid ride, I think is the way to describe it.
Gorgeous. Julian says, I just wanted to say how much we enjoy the Hangouts this lockdown. They've brought relief and joy. The enthusiasm you all share for the subject and the strength and love of your relationship makes for a really cheerful and feel good watching. We owe a debt of thanks to you for bringing them all to us. It is our genuine, heartfelt pleasure. Next week, we have the first of 2 birthday episodes, and it's going to blow your mind. I may as well tell you, we're going to York Road, which we are
Hurrah!
so excited about showing you, because all 4 of us got to go in December between the lockdowns, and Laura, we get to use wet wipes.
We totally do. And guess what, guys? There's lots of tiles.
It's so good. We were like kids in a sweet shop. It is so good. So the first of our 2 birthday episodes is at York Road next week. It's going to be wonderful. First of all, Laura, thank you so much for holding my hand as we went over the weird footbridge at St Mary's.
Absolute pleasure. Amazing, story that we managed to kind of unravel and unpick. And as I said at the beginning, I was a little bit underwhelmed, ended up at the end overwhelmed. So what more can we do?
It's glorious. Siddy, we are so envious of your trip yesterday.
Yes. Well, it was really quite wonderful, but it does take a toll spending the entire night at in the underground. I'm a little bit sleepy today, but it's one of those things that as soon as you're on the track and it's 4 a.m. in the morning, time stands still. So next time I'll bring you along, Alex, I promise.
Grubby but groovy, and that's just Siddy. Chris, next, thank you very much indeed, as always, for being brilliant.
Thank you, Alex. It's been a really good delve today, and good to get back to doing what we do best, getting in some tunnels.
Great stuff. If you've got questions for us, it's Chris Nix, it's Siddy Holloway, it's Hidden London Law, and it's Alex Grundon, plus LT Museum on Instagram. Find us, follow us, and then drop us a DM, and we'll answer all of your questions. Also on YouTube, like us, comment and subscribe down below. You're going to love all of that as well. And as I say, next week we are going to, for me, it is the Rolls Royce of disused tube stations with so much to show you. It's York Road. Have yourself a great day and stay safe.